Hello again, boys and girls. Welcome to our next Bible story from Genesis. Genesis 27 is where this is found. And remember our last story, Jacob stole Esau's birthright from him, and he tricked his father into making him think that Jacob was Esau because he put fur on him and made a special stew for him. And oh my goodness, Esau was so angry. So one day he was just out and he was so angry. He was ranting and yelling and saying, I hate him so much. How could he steal my birthright from me? And his mother overheard him saying, I'm going to kill him. So of course, oh my goodness, Rebecca was really worried and upset. She loved her son Jacob and she didn't want Esau to kill him. So she came to Isaac and she said, Isaac, you have to leave. Esau is so angry with you for stealing his birthright that he wants to kill you. And he said, you need to go see my brother Laban and stay with him for quite a while. Stay with him as long as you can so that Esau will stop being angry. And so Rebecca talked to Isaac about this, and Isaac agreed. He said it would be a good idea for him to go to Laban's because then maybe he can find a wife there, just like he did. So that's what Jacob did. He packed up and started his journey. And it was a very, very long journey, of course. Remember, in those days, they didn't have hotels. They didn't have trains or planes or automobiles or cars. He had to walk. And it was a very, very long journey to walk. And so as night came, he got really tired. So he found a rock, and the rock was his pillow. And while he was sleeping, he had a dream. And in that dream, he saw a ladder, a huge ladder coming from the sky. And on it, there were these angels going up and down this ladder. And at the top of the ladder, he saw God. And he was so amazed in how fantastic this was. He couldn't believe he actually got to see heaven. And then God spoke to him and said, Jacob, this land that you are laying on, I am going to give you and your descendants. Your children and your children's children will own this land. Oh my goodness, how wonderful that was. So God spoke to Jacob and promised him that he was going to have that land. Well, when he woke up that next morning, he decided this is a very special place. So he took the rock that he was laying on for his head, and he actually lifted it up and made it into a kind of like a monument. And that was going to be a very special reminder of where this land was that God is going to promise him. And he called it Bethel, or Bethel. And so that was very special. And he just continued on to his journey. And as he was walking, he felt different. He knew he was not alone, that God was with him. So he continued on and continued on until finally he got to Laban's place, or land. And when he got there were some shepherds coming, and with their sheep coming to a well. And they had their sheep, and so he thought, well, I want to find out if any of these shepherds know my uncle Laban. So Jacob asked, do you know my uncle Laban? And the shepherds said, oh yes, absolutely. In fact, here comes his daughter. His daughter Rachel was getting ready to come and feed the sheep, give the sheep water. So Jacob quickly said, here, let me get the lid. There used to be lids on top of the wells. And he took the big rock off the well for her. And she was so thankful. And she really liked him. And she was very excited that he was in town. And he said, why don't you come? She invited him to go to her home and meet her father. So that's what Jacob did. So when he left the well, and they went to see Laban. Well, when he got there, Laban invited Jacob to work for him. So Jacob ended up taking care of Laban's sheep. And he was a very, very good worker for Laban. And he was very thankful he was there. And then one day, after working for a while, and he was such a good worker, Laban said, Jacob, what would you like? I need to pay you. You are such a good hard worker. Well, in the meantime, Jacob had fallen in love with Rachel. So he said, I want to marry Rachel. Would you let me marry your daughter? That would be the best pay. I'll work for you for 7 years, he promised. And so that's what happened. Jacob worked for Laban for 7 years, and God blessed his work. And after that 7 years was over, it was time for them to get married. So he was so excited. And back in that day, the bride would wear a veil covering her whole face. And he was so excited when that day came. But that night, when it was time to take the veil off, he had been tricked. It wasn't Rachel. It was her sister Leah. Well, Leah was older than Rachel, and she wasn't as pretty. And he didn't want to marry Leah. So he was pretty upset. And he thought, how could he trick me? So it's interesting, because just like Jacob tricked his brother and his father, now he's been the one that was tricked by his father-in-law. So he complained to Laban, and he said, I didn't want to marry Leah. But Laban said, well, it's our custom that the older daughter always gets married first. So you can have Rachel as well, but you need to stay married to Leah and take care of her too. So Jacob agreed to that. And a week later, he did get to marry Rachel. But then he had to work for Laban for 7 more years. And so he had to work for him for 14 years. But he did that, and God blessed his work. And we're going to find out more about Jacob and Leah and Rachel next time.